This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We're locked and loaded here on a Tuesday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel holding it down for the next 2 hours, live from downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. JVT, second day in a row, we got bowl action kicking off as we open the show. The Bush's Boca Raton Bowl of Beans. Yes, that's what it's called. Don't shoot the messenger. Louisville and Toledo going head to head here. And we've seen a lot of line movement on this game in the last 24 hours. Louisville out to as high as 12.5. Looks like that's where they're going to close here. Total 44.5. Louisville was -7 when we were on the air yesterday.
Yep.
They were favored by 9 when I woke up this morning, 11 when I did the rundown, and now we're 12.5. It has been all one-way traffic, and I have to imagine at least some, if not all of this movement is compliments of the fact that their star running back, Isaac Brown, his mother posted to Facebook earlier today that he's going to be back for the first time since early November.
Is that worth 4 points?
I don't know if it's that much.
And in fact, if you really look at the line history in some spots, for DraftKings, for example, the lowest point was 6.5.
Yeah.
So this seemed really volatile for a bowl. You're going to see these kind of moves, but to get from a 1.6.5, where the initial market move was against Louisville, to the point where now we're at 12.5, somebody feels like they know something or sees something here. We'll see if that's going to be the case. And for a lot of it to happen in the hours leading up to the bowl as well is kind of weird. That would insinuate, you would assume then some late information.
It reminds me of like those like Reddit posts that move markets, like Isaac Brown's mom on Facebook posted that he's playing today.
Talking about Will Levis with the first overall pick.
Exactly. We saw how that panned out. But it was it's kind of a combination, I think, a confluence of factors here where you have both Isaac and Kewan Brown supposedly back in the backfield. Their starting quarterback, Miller Moss, is going to play in this game. Chris Bell, he tore his ACL at the end of the season, so he's out, but it looks like largely they have a pretty good complement of what their key core group has been throughout the course of the year. Meanwhile, for Toledo, they don't have their quarterback, Tucker Gleason. This has been known for a while, though. He reportedly had like multiple back fractures coming out of their regular season finale game. So it'll be a freshman, Caleb Osborne, getting the start for them. Toledo's head coach, Jason Candle, he's on his way out. He took the UConn job. Their defensive coordinator took the new DC position at Syracuse. And they have, I think, 3, maybe more defensive starters that are going to be unavailable. So it's like a bunch of different stuff. But again, that information had been known. Right. The only new information today was Isaac Brown.
Yeah, and look, I know that a lot of people do like to chase steam and want to be on the right side of it. But at the same time, in bowl season, we have example after example in which you'll get steamed to one direction, and it's maybe a little too much.
Yeah.
We've seen it all the time. My favorite example was a couple of years ago, the Hawaii Bowl with San Jose State and Chevron Cordero going back to Hawaii. It was closing as like 8.5, 9.5 point favorites, losing the game outright. So we have tons of examples throughout bowl season that says, sometimes teams a little too strong. And obviously, the bettors that are moving this, willing to bet a lot of them are sitting on 6.5 and not 11.5 or 12.5.
Completely agree, which now 6.5 is the first half spread in this game. So there you go. One of the bowl gifts for this game, because, bowl season, everybody gets their swag bags and fun little things. One of their items is a personalized can of beans.
Okay.
What a time to be alive.
So you can't open
bowl
them, right?
season,
You got to
baby.
keep them. It's like the personalized bottle of Coke or whatever.
But they still, beans inevitably expire at some point. I know it's canned goods, so it'll last for a while, but I don't think that's something you really want to hang on to forever.
Yeah, I mean, you keep it as decoration. You're not going to eat it.
But you just keep the can of beans for that? Well, I don't know. That seems a little suspect. Would you keep the can of beans? Tweet at us. Let us know. Seriously, though, chime in with us throughout the course of the show. At me, JVT, at Storm Buonantony, at VSiN Live. Always love to interact with y'all as we go.
Before you go to our rundown, we do have a little bit of breaking news that does actually matter here. But it is officially official. J.J. McCarthy will not play.
Okay.
Hairline fracture in the hand out this week. Max Brosmer is expected to start.
So I don't want to be rude in this assessment, but it was a tweet that I saw coming out yesterday. Like, JJ McCarthy is not good enough to be this injured all the time. Like, he's already struggled as much as he had, and now he's had so many games where he's been unavailable. Now it looks like another thing you can add to the list for him right now.
So we'll wonder. I would assume this line thought he wasn't going to be out there, but the market always moves on information that we knew. So we'll see if maybe this gets to a full 7. Detroit right now on the screen, a 6-point favorite, total of 44.5.
And didn't they have a handful of other things too? If I remember correctly,
Starting
Jordan
center,
Mason.
I was going to say Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, both got injured in that game. Starting center got injured in that game as well. So there's a lot of injuries for the Minnesota Vikings as they head into this game against Detroit. I was on with our buddies, Dave and Jensen, talked about this elsewhere too, but Thought under 44.5 here for Detroit, Minnesota might be worth looking at. I know it's already moved a lot, but with the official news that McCarthy's not out and how banged up they are. And by the way, very quietly, the Detroit Lions, since about 5 weeks ago, 30th in rush success rate. They've not been able to run the ball. Their offense has had a lot of issues, and this is a good defense for Minnesota. Could see that this is an ugly game at 1:30 our time. Shouldn't say Pacific on Christmas Day.
We'll have plenty of NFL news and notes as we go here throughout the course of the day, but that is a great reminder. Let's set the table for everything that is to come today on Money Moves. Hit us with the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
Actually pretty fitting with us opening the show today talking college football. We will have VSiN.com managing editor and college football expert Adam Burke on the program coming up at the end of the hour. Get some of his thoughts on the other bowls today and this week, as well as his thoughts on the quarterfinals, some college hoops. Will be a fun discussion. Then in hour 2, Darren Millard, who is the pre, post, and intermission host for the Vegas Golden Knights, talk through what is a loaded 13-game NHL slate today.
Yes, looking forward to both of them. And Adam Burke talking a little bit of college hoops. And as it is actually, we got stuff going on right now and some drama. How about Kentucky as a massive 34.5-point favorite today? Kind of scuffling in the first half with a lowly opponent in, I always get this wrong, Bellarmine, I believe is how you pronounce it. Either way, though, it is a 46-38 game. They pulled away a little late, but they were 34.5-point favorites at the close.
10-point game right now, but it was tight when we looked up in the first half.
And the Doug Gottlieb show died for what? They are getting pounded by Campbell right now, 92-67.
Can I just say that was the weirdest press conference I've ever seen when he stepped down officially from the show.
I can't wait to hear what Adam has to say about it. But the Green Bay Phoenix not rising from the ashes today. They're getting absolutely pounded.
Speaking of hoops, plenty of NBA on the program as well. We will dive into the NBA and NHL cards as we go. But let's kick things off with the National Football League because my 49ers got it done yesterday and are still alive for not only the division win in the NFC West, but the 1 seed in the NFC. They get the win and cover 48-27 final against the Indianapolis Colts. Total goes well over, by the way, as well. The instant regret I know I personally feel when a game starts 14-7, it's like, man, if only I were on the over. There were 41 points scored in the first half of a 46-point total game. And for months, JVT, this has been all about the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. And then all of a sudden, here come the San Francisco 49ers, who control their own destiny now, like I said.
They control their own destiny. They do. That is a factual statement.
Uphill battle, though, the next 2 weeks.
It is. You get the Bears and then the Seattle Seahawks to round it out. I think the 49ers are a good story. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is doing a great job. We'll get to the Coach of the Year stuff coming up here in a little bit. I also think we saw yesterday maybe why some people are a little hesitant to buy your team.
You heard Paul Bovey's voice chiming in the back of your head throughout the course of the game. I did.
I responded to Paul, who gave me some very, I had no idea that Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner were out yesterday. But I will say that he responded with, hey, the 49ers defense is ass. And I responded with, the Colts defense might be a little bit more. But that to me is kind of a takeaway. Yeah. Look, the 49ers offense was good. They completely dismantled the Colts defense, which kept them in a game in Seattle 10 days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, they
were carving them up.
Yeah, but the San Francisco defense early, man, they were giving up some wide open looks. I mean, it was a big reason why Phillip Rivers deserves a ton of credit for finding open guys and doing what he was supposed to do. But those dudes were open and they were moving that ball in San Francisco quite a bit. And you do wonder as you move forward, I think that Salah's done a great job. Shanahan's done a great job. And maybe they're going to be the 1 seed, like you mentioned. But in the grand scheme of competing in the NFC, I think you do see why there's a lot of people that are hesitant, specifically with the defense. The offense, I think, is going to be very good. But the defense does have its issues.
Well, and we talked about that going in. They can't bring any pressure. And to go to the Phillip Rivers side of this thing, too, I think it kind of goes to show how much of that position in particular is mental versus the physical. And granted, obviously, he has some shortcomings, which is why I think as the game went on and the 49ers kept being able to score, that they couldn't as much. Was last night just like kind of worst case scenario for you as a person, though? Because you're an Indianapolis Colts fan. But you are actively rooting against this Phillip Rivers experiment. And so for him to throw for 270 and a couple of touchdowns, But to lose the game, was that just like worst of both worlds for you?
Not really. Again, a lot of people are going to freak out and say 277, 2 touchdowns. That's great. But you hit it on the head. I mean, he throws an interception, commits another turnover with the play, so 2 in totality. He had a lot of balls that were kind of fluttering and not really close, and a big reason why he couldn't find some guys that were open. Pittman, there was one early on where Pittman, I think, beats this guy, but he underthrows it. There were quite a few passes in which he underthrew him and couldn't really get it done. I think that if you actually evaluate what Rivers did, he did a pretty solid job. But, I know a lot of people are going to balk at this. PFF gave him a passer grade of 49.6. I'm sure if you look at the EPA per dropback, it was probably fine, but not well above average. And you hit the most important part. That thing died down in the second half, man. Like, there wasn't really that much that was going on in that second half for Indianapolis, while the San Francisco 49ers just kept chugging along. And that, to me, is probably what we're looking at here. The Colts still have like a 2% chance to make it into the postseason. I watched the press conference with Steichen. I didn't see anything in terms of the answer to the question, will he continue to play here for Indianapolis, all but eliminated. But, yeah, it's not like the worst case scenario. And I think I saw a great prompt. Do you think Philip Rivers should play next year?
God, what are we doing? No. The answer is no. What are you talking about? Did you see, by the way, all the cutaways to his family up into the suite?
Yeah, child kept getting added every time they cut to it. It got more
every
crowded.
time. There were more and more. But for an Indianapolis Colts team that started the season so hot, and you were wondering if maybe they could really contend for the AFC 1 seed, they're 7-1. Things have really fallen apart here. 5th straight loss. They've lost 6 of their last 7. Meanwhile, give credit where credit is due. Brock Purdy, career high 5 touchdowns to 4 different players. It's the most scores by a 49ers quarterback in a regular season game since Joe Montana 35 years ago. Cash your anytime touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey, who had 2, Juwan Jennings, Demarcus Robinson, George Kittle. Bad beat, though, if you had Jake Tonjes. Both feet sliding on the ground. Refs call him out of bounds. Shanahan said post-game that he thought for a moment about challenging it, but Brock Purdy went quick game, man. And so they didn't get to it. So RIP 28-1 for an anytime touchdown for Tonjes. Instead, CMC gets 2. We'll be right back.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
About trying to get to a Super Bowl, trying to win a Super Bowl, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't really talk that way this year. We needed to focus on just trying to be the best team we could be, and we'll see what happens. And that's kind of been our motto all year, and I was just so proud that I actually now, last night, could congratulate them and actually talk about the playoffs, because they are in that, they got in there, and now it's time to position ourselves to try to do something special in that.
That's 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan after what was a 48-27 win on Monday Night Football over the Indianapolis Colts. And we talked about it briefly last segment, JVT, but in terms of the road ahead for San Francisco, you've got the Bears coming up this week, which is a huge game, for Chicago as well. And this is what I thought you were going to talk about earlier. And then, of course, they end the season with the Seattle Seahawks. So it's a tough road ahead for these final 2 weeks, but they do control their own destiny for the NFC West in the 1 seed. But for you, when you brought up earlier the Bears, how did you not go down the road of your futures play?
Oh, well, there's that.
Because that's immediately what I was thinking of. You're like, I don't know about this 49ers team. They're not that great because the Bears are going to get the 1 seed.
They could because they're still alive. But, in all seriousness, the reality for San Francisco, both in this matchup and if you zoom out and it ties into Chicago, one of the things as we had discussed yesterday was, defensively, they have their issues. We saw a little bit of that in the secondary. I think the other part about it is their run defense, which we have discussed a little bit. And last night, it didn't really get there. Jonathan Taylor had 16 carries for 46 yards. I think that the Colts were kind of lulled into a shootout type mentality there where they were playing the run really hard and they were asking Phil Rivers to say, hey, see if you can beat us through the air. And Rivers not almost beat them, but performed pretty well to challenge that game plan for San Francisco. But at the end of the day, statistically, this is a run defense for San Francisco, which has been well below average. And now you get this really well-schemed Russian attack that Chicago's going to come in and potentially be a fly in the ointment. 2 things can be true. Chicago probably shouldn't have beat Green Bay Packers. Chicago probably shouldn't have a couple of those wins. Chicago is also one of the best running games in the National Football League that is going to, I think, cause problems for a lot of teams Should they have to play them? Should they get this one seed? I mean, I've made the case, and I don't know if I made this to you or where it was yesterday, but you see a scenario which Chicago wins the one seed, and you have to go out to that muck, that cold, that wind, and have to play them with their ability to run the ball the way they can. I can see a scenario in which we're talking about a Chicago Bears team much similar to Washington last year, making a run to an NFC Championship game. Do you believe them to be a true threat? Yeah, probably not. But we've seen teams win a couple of games and be in a spot where they probably shouldn't all the time in the NFL.
For a lot of the reasons you laid out is why I was actually surprised that we didn't see Indianapolis run the ball a little bit more yesterday with Jonathan Taylor, because that is something that really does make me nervous about Chicago coming up next week, is how dynamic their run game has been able to be. We have seen the 49ers already, though, from yesterday to today, bet up from 2.5 to that full 3 now. The total up a bit as well from 50.5 to 51.5. And then for San Francisco to close out the season against the Seattle Seahawks, 49ers hosted Seattle to open the season 117-13. That's kind of crazy. They're bookending the season in that way, and what was a critical game then and is again now. But all of this to push it forward a little bit more, to say something that we've talked about a lot on this show is the Coach of the Year market. And it seems like more and more support out there publicly. Frank Schwab, NFL and sports betting reporter for Yahoo, tweeted this yesterday, quote, "If the 49ers get the number 1 seed, the Coach of the Year vote should be unanimous. It won't be, and I doubt Kyle Shanahan wins it even in that scenario, but this is one of the better coaching jobs I can remember. Remarkable." And I could not agree more. Kyle Shanahan even was asked after the game yesterday about how everything has come together this season despite all the turnover.
We had so much turnover this year. So we do have a ton of new guys. We have a ton of guys who have been here who have stepped it up. We've, I don't think we've dropped any games that we should have won. I think we've been able to stay consistent throughout the year. And I think we came in with the mindset just taking it one game at a time and trying to get better throughout the year. And I think we have. I think we did today. And it's important that we continue that.
He's up there. I mean, there's a lot of good coaching jobs so far this year.
For sure.
And you can make a really good case. I mean, we're watching Shanahan win his 11th game despite all of the injuries, and that comes a day after we watch Liam Cohen roll into Denver and absolutely dismantle.
Despite being a small market team.
Yeah, dismantle the best defense in the National Football League. There's a lot of strong cases for Coach of the Year. I do wonder if Shanahan will get it, but at the end of the day, if I were to tell you a team that lost the most games to injury in the toughest division in the NFL, not only won the division, but won the 1 seed. I mean, I think it's coaching 101. Like, that's a guy that's brought them through. Regardless of what you think about the team, you can have your doubts about what the team is. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to hear about the schedule either, because you're going to make the argument about the schedule.
You have to make that for the New England Patriots.
Correct. And then you have to eliminate Mike Vrabel as well. So that to me is moot. We talked about this on Pod of the Futures this morning, which will be out a little bit later. That point of the schedule, you beat who you beat. And the fact that you've overcome the adversity, had Brock Purdy and Mac Jones start meaningful games. Somebody tried to argue with me the other day, well, Mac Jones will get stopped. You did not think that. This is a good coaching job by Shanahan.
And I just want to say, too, I feel like people also forget coming into this year how much talent they just lost, period, right? Like, especially on the defensive end, because obviously that's where they have the most shortcomings. But it is Dre Greenlaw, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, Javon Hargrave. Like, all of these names were out. And you have your money invested in key pieces like Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, who are your best players on that side of the ball. And then they go down, and then your backups go down. And I feel like, as a team, I've just been very impressed with the way they've been able to stay above water in that vein. As a team, they have 2 fewer sacks than Myles Garrett does by himself this year. And yet they're still winning games. And Mac Jones did a great job helping them in that. But since Brock Purdy's been back, 5 straight wins, right? They've overcome a lot. And so in terms of the odds board, Vrabel is still at the top of the board, -110. But Shanahan and Mike McDonald now right there tied as your second shots at +330. Liam Cohen +750. And then your boy Ben Johnson with the Chicago Bears sitting at 8-1.
Kind of an eliminator, don't you think, coming up this weekend?
Feels like it.
Right? Like Shanahan or Johnson has a really good case for this. Probably one loses, then, of course, they'll move on, which I think is always, of course, silly. Like, they're both performing pretty well as coaches. Who knows? I think you have McDonald. It's really hard to say right now who's going to win this thing. I guess you could say it's Vrabel, but there's some legitimately good coaching jobs. And I say, too, like with McDonald, because that's kind of been the guy that I've been pointing to outside of Shanahan, which has just been, they're such a well-rounded team. They're good on special teams. They're good on defense. The offense, has been middling a little bit recently, but still, that has been a top offense in the National Football League so far this year at a lot of different metrics. They're one of the most well-rounded teams in the NFL and look to be a dominant force.
Real quickly, because earlier you gave the update on J.J. McCarthy being out, hairline fracture in his hand for this coming week. The Vikings are, quote, not ruling out running back Jordan Mason yet, although Jeremy Fowler said he is considered a long shot as of now. We'll discuss that more a little bit later on, but I want to make sure we get to the big news coming out of Pittsburgh today that DK Metcalf has been suspended for 2 games without pay by the league for conduct detrimental to the NFL for initiating, quote, a physical confrontation with a fan during Sunday's game in Detroit. Metcalf is appealing the suspension, and there are major financial implications that come to play with this too. In addition to the over $500,000 in just salary game pay for the next 2 weeks, his contract has language that makes future guarantees null and void for, among other things, conduct detrimental. He had $25 million in fully guaranteed money for 2026 coming, another 20 in 2027. They could still pay him, but don't have to now.
Yeah. I mean, this is what we talked about. You have to at least prepare that he was not going to be available.
Yeah.
And 2 games, I don't know, 2 games seems somewhat lucky. I mean, given the opportunity in front of you, it's the Browns. You're only 3.5-point favorites. You understand that. But this is a game that you should be able to grab if you're Pittsburgh, salt this away in the AFC North, and then just sit back and let him serve out the suspension.
Well, I know this year hasn't been quite what I thought it would be, or I'm sure what the Steelers hoped it would be for DK Metcalf, but he's still like a really important piece to what they do. And this is the Browns' good defense in a low total weather game. So it does raise at least a little bit of concern for me against the Browns team that the Steelers team needs one more win. Yep. They're minus 1,400 favorites to win the division, but they still need one more. Oh, also quick update. Quinshon Judkins, we saw him go down on the field on Sunday. Fractured fibula and dislocated ankle, had surgery this morning, so he's done.
And I mean, to your point, it's not like they were going to fail to cover that game against Detroit, but you almost blew it, and you had an offensive PI call, 2 of them, that ultimately saved your bacon there in that game. I mean, you're talking about potentially losing that game against Detroit if you can't pull that off. So I can understand some worry here, but everything, like, I think this is actually a godsend for them. Imagine if it was like 3 games and it's extended out into a postseason or whatever.
End of the regular. Yeah. I guess I'm just surprised that it wasn't 1 because we've seen so many 1-game suspensions doled out, and we're starting to see alternate angles of the fan who clearly wanted to agitate him, so I don't know. We'll see if anything is to come out of this. Completely understand the appeal, especially with the money that's tied to this thing. So we'll see if we get any changes there. The Chargers also won't have one of their key players last 2 weeks of the regular season. Denzel Perriman similarly suspended for 2 games without pay, albeit for on-field stuff. The league citing repeated violations of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players being violated. He was flagged for an unnecessary roughness after a helmet-to-helmet hit on Ryan Flournoy against the Cowboys. Ian Rappaport reported that Perriman, too, will be appealing the suspension.
Weird. Harbaugh team having a history of just doing whatever they want, maybe playing some underhanded football.
Kamani Vidal, by the way, also Chargers lead rusher for the year, day-to-day with a neck strain he suffered in the win over the Cowboys, so something else to monitor as we go ahead to this week.
Chargers have some big games in front of them, man.
They do indeed. I mean, but how many teams are up in the air still for their respective 1 seeds on both sides of this thing?
2 weeks left. I thought Mitch put it well on the podcast today. This season's awesome, dude. There's so many teams. There's so much still up for grabs in the last 2 weeks, and anybody can win it.
If you like parity, this season is for you. And if you like sports betting, a VSiN Pro subscription is right there for you as well. VSiN's holiday special, giving you VSiN Pro access to everything we do through May 1st for just $79 right now. Get a gift for yourself or the special sports bettor in your life. You get daily best bets, real-time betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, the AI prop tools, so much more. Give yourself the gift of smarter betting at vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe to the NBA next on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Before the line moves, remember everybody, the sharp plays is already there. They don't just follow the market, they help shape it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sports books or full-time sharps on your own, but with sharp plays, you don't have to. Powered by advanced AI, connected to proven insider sources, and active across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and college hoops, the Sharp Plays delivers the edge serious bettors rely on. You get free daily reports, real-time alerts, market-moving insights, all straight to your inbox or X feed. Since 2011, they've been backing it all up with documented results. Got public logs, transparent receipts. Check it out if you haven't already. sharpplays.com. Trusted by the pros, monitored by the books. Stay ahead of the line at sharpplays.com. Louisville up 7-0 in the Boca Raton Bowl here early. They scored on their opening drive, went down the field like it was nothing. They were driving again. This next opportunity they had the ball, move past the 50-yard line. Then Miller Moss gets picked off. So Toledo with a little bit of a chance here late in the first quarter. I know you had some news that came across your timeline while we were in the break as well, JVT.
Yeah, I got a couple of things for you. First off, we mentioned starting center for the Vikings, his status as well. Ryan Kelly, he will not play on Thursday.
Okay.
So Vikings down their starting center, Vikings down their starting quarterback. That number is officially at 7 now for Detroit on Christmas. Also, the Green Bay Packers, questions about both quarterbacks. Just Jordan Love, was dealing with a concussion. Also, Malik Willis with a sore shoulder. Both were limited in practice today. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on as we watch for what their status will be as we get closer to their matchup on Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens.
One of two games on Saturday, laying 2.5 in that spot, total 40.5. That said, let's go to the NBA here real quickly, because while we do have a full slate of games today, and of course the Christmas Day slate that's going to be upon us here soon, some interesting drama that transpired yesterday with the Warriors and Magic last night. And producer Wyatt, if you want to throw up that video we had, so we can set the scene here a little bit. Middle of the third quarter, Warriors are down 71-66 following a Draymond Green turnover. And hopefully we can get this video up here. But basically, you see Draymond Green and Steve Kerr really getting into it with Green sitting on the bench. It's clearly a heated argument during a timeout, leads to Draymond ultimately getting up from the bench. He leaves the game for the final 20 minutes, walks down the tunnel. Here's Steve Kerr on what happened with Green after the game.
Yeah, we got into it, obviously, and I took the timeout just because I thought we lost our focus there a little bit, and so we had it out a little bit, and he made his decision to go back to the locker room to cool off, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's everything is private, and I got nothing further to add.
Would you? I mean, he didn't play the last 20 minutes. Would you have gone back to him?
No, he wasn't going back in.
And one of those additional follow-up questions a little later, too, Kerr was asked if Green went to the locker room or was sent there, and he said, yeah, he did that on his own.
This is non-betting for the most part, but this whole thing with Draymond Green, the fact that Steve Kerr's coddled him to this point and allows him to do what he wants to do is absolute insanity. I mean, the reason why he continues to do this is because he has been given the leeway to do it. He socked a teammate in the jaw, and the team threw the other player under the bus, traded him away, and then blamed Jordan Poole. So, I don't really feel bad for him at all, considering that he's enabled this every step of the way with Draymond Green. I think Draymond Green's a great player. I've gotten into many arguments about his value as a player defensively with many people, but as a teammate and being just this raucous force that is really he's ruined this team at times with the way that he's acted.
Disruptive.
And here you are again. I mean, it's almost great that he gets kicked, he leaves. And then what happens? You come back, you end up winning this game. So
they win 120-97 after they were trailing when he left the game.
It's ridiculous.
Steph Curry was awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely insane. There is a running joke that in the games in which Steph either can't go or they're going to lose, he gets kicked out and leaves on purpose because he doesn't want to suffer the loss. And looks like maybe that was going to be it, but good win for the Warriors despite that. But it does speak to what a tumultuous season this has been for Golden State. Sitting at about 500 so far, can't really get guys on the court together. Health, injury, things of that nature have really derailed them. Additions like Al Horford haven't really worked. They're an old team, and I think that we're kind of seeing that maybe by the end of the regular season they'll get it together, but hardly a force, I think, to be reckoned with as we enter Christmas Day where they get a big spot against the Mavericks coming up.
What do you think of the brown jerseys?
I hate some of these jerseys that are out there, man.
I did not like them.
The brown jerseys, they're not that bad.
I was not a fan.
I'm sure you've watched a lot of Wizards basketball. The Wizards gold jerseys have been abhorrent. I don't even know who decided that they should start wearing those. But there's a lot of bad jerseys out.
Celtics had a nice little comeback last night as well. Down 20 in the third quarter. They come all the way back to beat the Pacers 103-95. Very quietly won 13 of their last 17 games. And I was looking at some of the metrics down the stretch. Since November 12th, lead the NBA in overall efficiency in that span. Is this real, what they've been doing lately?
I mean, I don't know. So I don't know if that was the day you were here or not, but we kind of hit on the fact that, remember, they were on that torrid stretch for a minute, and then they lost 2 straight, and that coincided with some pretty poor shooting from the Boston Celtics. They actually haven't really snapped out of that. If you look at these last few games, in 4 out of the last 5, despite the fact that they have won 3 of them, they've shot under 31% from beyond the arc. So they're getting it done in different ways. I would expect that that's going to be something that's going to be pretty volatile for this team as we move along. They're a team that's heavily dependent on this 3-point shooting. And when that starts to go, then you're going to get some of these extreme results. But I think it's really heartening for them that they're getting it done without it. Now, it is the Indiana Pacers, so you take that with a grain of salt. The Pacers are kind of all over the place, given how disjointed this roster is with the injuries. But good wins nonetheless. Miami, Toronto, and Indiana. Some would make the argument 2 of those 3 are kind of sliding, but still, Boston bouncing back nicely after 2 pretty bad losses against Milwaukee and Detroit.
So lots of games today, and since you didn't highlight any specific ones in the rundown, I'm going to go to the ones that interest me the most.
Well, hold on.
Can I just at least hit one? Okay.
No, I'm just going to say you missed out on like the biggest thing from last night.
What was the biggest thing?
I put it in the rundown. Keontae George continues. You see, look, you don't look at the updated rundown.
Yes,
you don't see these
mean?
things. Keontae George?
Oh, I didn't see this one. Oh,
Yes.
that's because you wanted to talk awards. Got it.
Yes,
Go,
Keontae George last night. Throw it up, Wyatt. Come on. Look at these last 5 games.
He says, I don't care about the game. I just care about Keontae George.
That's exactly what I said. Look at these last 5 games for Keontae George. Again, after last night, scores 20 points for his 5th consecutive game. Over his last 5 contests, 31.4 points, 5.4 rebounds, 7.6 assists per game. He's shooting 49% from the floor, 45% from 3-point range. His improvement on the season has been absolutely tremendous. And I am amazed that as you look at the most improved odds, and trust me, it is a award that has irritated me to no end because there are stupid parameters around this and voters aren't really consistent with the way they look at it. But Stormy, to look at the improvements that Keontae George has made from 16.8 points per game to 23.9, his assists per game from 5.6 to 6.9, his shooting efficiency at this point right now from 39% on 13 shots, and this is from the floor, to 44% on 3 more shots per game. This dude has improved wildly. He is a straight up pro, an NBA player that could end the season averaging 24, 4, and 7 on efficient shooting. You're going to tell me this dude, Keontae George, should be 16-1? I know we've talked about him a bunch. I got him at, I think it was 30-1. It's worth adding, man. He is going to continue to be a true player, and the improvement is absolutely wild. I'm shocked that the market has not adjusted enough to how much he has improved here.
His last 4 games, he's averaging like 34.5 points.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. It's pretty good.
It's absolutely incredible here. So I just want to point that out. Most
right.
improved is one of these weird markets. You know, you've seen guys like Ryan Rollins slip because he got off to a good start, but it's really calmed down. And it's a really good race this year. You know, there's a lot of guys who have done really well. Among them, as you see at the top, Denny Avdia, I think, should probably be your favorite, but Jalen Johnson has been absolutely incredible. Either way, though, Keontae George, his odds of winning that, I would say, are better than what the market is giving him right now. He's been awesome.
We'll hit on more NBA a little bit later on because I know we do have a big picture topic we need to get into, but a lot of games. And the one that at least caught my eye initially was
Charlotte.
Thunder at Spurs. No. But trust me, we'll get there. But OKC in the second half of back-to-back, easy win over the Grizzlies last night. SGA was awesome per usual. They're laying 5.5 and a chance to avenge their NBA Cup semifinal loss to San Antonio. Weird stat for you. OKC, 26-3 on the year, but 1-2 in games favored by fewer than 7 points.
Sure.
What do you think here? Laying 5.5 on the road, total 233.5.
I mean, I think this might, I would not. So again, going back to what we saw before, and again, we have to talk about the injury report as well for both of these teams because that's going to factor into this. As we know that AJ Mitchell is not going to be available. Wiggins is questionable. And the other side, really nothing to report outside of Victor Wembanyama is questionable to play. So you want him out there. But I do think that I would not take away too much from the first time they played in Las Vegas. If you remember the next game, we talked about the Spurs against New York, and they ended up losing that game. It was only a 2.5 point spread. But the Thunder did not shoot very well. And it was a neutral game in a court that they have never played in before in Las Vegas. Like, that's a weird spot to be in. If the 3-point shooting corrects itself a little bit here, and obviously if Wembanyama can't play, I think this is a good spot to look at Oklahoma City to come in here and get this done. And the injury report seems like they're in pretty good shape to get this done. But, dude, they've been taking everybody's best punch. I don't know if you've been seeing recently what exactly they've been going through, OKC, but taking a couple of losses here. They lost to the Timberwolves down the stretch, 112-107. They've been in some dogfights too, so maybe this is a spot now looking ahead to another matchup against San Antonio on Christmas.
Bing bong.
That they're going to potentially look past it. But I would think, to your point, last time they played this team, they beat them. I think you're going to get a good foot forward here from OKC.
Here is your National Christmas Day slate, by the way. Spurs at Thunder, Cavs, Knicks, Mavs, Warriors, Rockets, Lakers, Timberwolves, Nuggets. Should be a pretty fun day. On that note, we do need to step aside here real quickly. When we come back, we're going to shift gears into some college football. We'll have plenty more NBA a little bit later on in the show, but excited to have VSiN.com managing editor Adam Burke join us, not in studio today, but we're still going to get to see his lovely face, talk through the quarterfinals now that they are set. He has a bet in one of the 3 bowl games that's coming up a little bit later on today, and some college hoops. You won't want to miss it. Stick around right here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And right here in Las Vegas, the Fremont Street experience is always on. But this New Year's Eve, they're turning it all the way up. Ring in 2026 at Countdown Under the Canopy, happening December 31st all night long. You get 6 live concerts on 3 stages. Robin Thicke's going to be there. CeeLo Green, Chingy, plus a massive countdown and light spectacular on the iconic Fremont Street canopy. 1 ticket, 1 night, just $60. The party starts at 7. Grab your tickets now at vegasexperience.com, the Slotzilla box office, or any gate location on December 31st. And you know what? Something tells me our guy Adam Burke might be there. As we welcome you back in here to Money Moves, Adam Burke joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line, VSiN.com managing editor. And there is no one in my life I know who goes to concerts more than Adam Burke. Granted, they are largely country concerts, but how can you turn down Chingy? You're always down here at Fremont. You gonna go?
No. I mean, it's nothing against Chingy. It's not that. I just the crowd in that kind of condensed environment where there's really not a whole lot of room to move around side to side. Yeah, I'll pass on that one.
Are you going to be moving side to side a lot at these concerts?
The fact that you can't maneuver through the crowd.
Sure,
Yeah.
It's a very condensed space on Fremont.
It's just a joke. I thought you were dancing. That's all. All right. We have a lot to get to here.
Do I look like I dance? Are you kidding me?
Later tonight, UNLV will take on Ohio in the Scooters Frisco Coffee Bowl. Is that
Nailed
right?
it.
Yeah, something like that.
We got the Bean Bowl going right
Yep.
now. We got Scooters Coffee a little bit later. Different kind of beans, but it's better. I prefer the caffeinated
Big day for
kind.
beans today. All right. What are we doing here with UNLV? They're laying 6.5 total, 64.5 for 65.
Yeah, with all the line movement that we see during the bowl season, I'm pretty surprised, and maybe this is a bad sign for me, that this one really hasn't gotten to 7 at too many places out there, because I don't understand why anyone would be interested in taking Ohio in this game. I mean, maybe you could argue that they want to put all this stuff with the coaching staff behind them, where Brian Smith put on leave. Nobody really knew why. Then we find out that he was drinking in his office and having an inappropriate relationship with a student and all these kinds of things. So they have an interim head coach who probably isn't going to get the job, I don't think, here in DC, John Hauser. And it's been boring for UNLV in the lead up to the bowl game. And honestly, if it's boring in the lead up to a bowl game, that's a really good thing for your program. Dan Mullen doesn't have a lot of opt-outs, hasn't really had a whole lot of pieces or parts leaving the program, whether it's players or coaches or anything like that. UNLV is a very, very dynamic offense. Both of these teams have mobile quarterbacks. Both of these teams very adept at running the football, but Anthony Calandra is a better passer than Parker Navarro is. I don't get it, man. I don't understand why this line hasn't gone to 7 or higher. I'll take UNLV minus 6.5. And if I lose this one, so be it. But the MAC was terrible all season long. And I think UNLV will really exploit that here with the Bobcats.
Yeah, boring team versus one that's got a lot of program turbulence right now makes a lot of sense. And speaking of bowls with a lot of line movement, the one that's on our screens right now that I mentioned in passing, the Boca Raton Bowl, 7-3 right now with Louisville up, but we saw a huge swing in favor of Louisville this morning. The big news at least, coming out that Isaac Brown was going to start in this game, yet he's only got 2 carries so far on the day for 11 yards, and we're in the second quarter. Any just initial early thoughts on this game, or at least the late line movement we saw? Did that surprise you that it moved so much for one news item?
Well, we saw a couple of things here. First of all, Tucker Gleason, the starting quarterback for Toledo, isn't playing. He's actually coaching for the Rockets here in this game. He's not playing. They started a freshman at quarterback. And then also, of course, Toledo losing Jason Candle to UConn, which honestly, it's an upgrade. Losing Jason Candle, the way that he performed in a favorite role for this Rockets team that, quite frankly, should be the best team in the MAC year in and year out based on the talent, the pipeline that they have there. But, that was a big part of it, too, where Toledo's starting quarterback, senior guy with a lot of experience, played the vast majority of the snaps here this season. He wound up not suiting up, and it was something that people kind of expected anyway. Yeah. So we kind of started to see this line leak out and out and out, but that was really the big part of it here today, too.
So that was my thought, is like, I thought we already knew that. At least that's what I was expecting. So to see it swing as much as it did today was at least a little bit surprising. How about some of these quarterfinal matchups? Or did you have any reaction coming out of the first round that made you think one way or another about a team ahead of these quarters?
Well, look, I was really impressed with what Miami did, specifically what Shannon Dawson and Corey Heatherman did. They're two coordinators, the offensive and defensive coordinator, where they didn't do much at all, really, on offense in the first half of that game. Didn't do much throughout most of the game, but they made some good adjustments on offense with their play calling. They got Texas A&M moving side to side, spread the linebackers out a little bit more, and then were able to run the football up the middle. You can't really do that against Ohio State because they're just so good up the middle with Caleb Downs and Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles. But I was really impressed with what Shannon Dawson did, kind of altering the game plan a little bit there for Miami. And of course, Texas A&M squandered opportunities early, and that kind of put them behind the eight ball. But Corey Heatherman did a really, really good job of bottling up Marcel Reese. And I thought that would be the difference in the game. Reese's mobility versus the fact that Beck is pretty much immobile for the Hurricanes. And, Heatherman took that away from Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed, as a pocket passer, makes mistakes. We saw that against South Carolina, and we definitely saw that against Miami in this game. So I was really, really impressed with the Hurricanes. Obviously, you worry about Mario Cristobal and his game management, and I worry about Ryan Day and his game management here in this New Year's Eve game. But this game between Miami and Texas A&M was an example of just how vitally important coordinators are at the college football level, because those are the guys that are calling the plays. Those are the guys truly making the adjustments. And I'm curious to see how that plays out for Ohio State with Ryan Day as the play caller now, with Brian Hartline so distracted with the South Florida job.
All right, let's talk one more game that we have today really quickly. Did you have anything in the Caesars Bowl right here? Excuse me, the Caesars Superdome. It's the New Orleans Bowl. Western Kentucky, Southern Miss, 2.5, 58.5. Anything at all?
Yeah, so I'm sitting on a bad number with Western Kentucky from early on in the bowl season, just because Southern Miss lost their head coach, Charles Huff. He took the job at Memphis, and about half of this Southern Miss roster came with him from Marshall. So going from Huntington to Hattiesburg, figured that maybe they wouldn't be a big fan of, him leaving once again after just 1 year, but we've seen a pretty significant line move on the Southern Miss side. So I'm assuming my Western Kentucky bet from early on in the bowl season is dead in the water, but I did also play the over in this one at 57.5. Now out to 50, as high as 59. These are two mobile quarterbacks. These are two guys that, have a lot of weapons at their disposal. The defenses are the two sides that are really getting a lot of opt-outs here in this game. So I tend to agree with this line move on the over, and I'm hoping for a shootout here in this New Orleans Bowl.
How about college hoops, Adam? Not a ton of games today, but I did see the article up at vsin.com today. You have a play in this Harvard-St. John's game. What do you like?
Yeah, only 11 games on the card here for college basketball tonight. No games tomorrow, no games on Christmas, one game on Friday, a handful of games on Saturday. So it's a pretty slow week for college football, or college basketball, excuse me. I like Harvard plus the points in this one against St. John's. I mean, Harvard is a team that they really, really slow the game down. They average about 66 possessions per game from an adjusted tempo standpoint. If they can slow St. John's down at all, I think it definitely helps their cause here with covering this spread. Look, I mean, there's a detail-oriented team. And also, when you talk about the Ivies, right? I mean, academics are more important than athletics at those schools. And so for these kids to be through their exam periods, get that done and over with, they played their first game over the weekend on Saturday after a 14-day layoff, blew out Holy Cross. Yes, St. John's is dramatically better than Holy Cross, but I think it's a bit of a weight off your mind to have those exams done if you go to an Ivy League school. So now Harvard can just kind of focus on basketball for a little while. And I think that allows them to cover 26.5 tonight against St. John's.
I know you don't like you do. You follow them all, but the big program thing isn't your deal. But did you see the story with Darren Peterson for Kansas? The guy's dinged up. He's been injured throughout the season. His family has told Bill Self, Adam, that they don't want him out there until he's as close to 100% as possible. This is the new day and age, dude. Now you got representation telling the head coach, like, sorry, bud, we don't feel like he's healthy. I would be surprised if we see him again this year.
Yeah, I'd be surprised too. I mean, Kansas took care of a pretty decent Davidson team last night. They blew them out by 29. Davidson's a pretty good jump shooting team, but, Kansas is a team that can obviously get to the rim and kind of take advantage of that, which Matt McKillop's team doesn't really do. It's just the nature of the beast now in college athletics, right? I saw, kind of scrolling through the X timeline before this hit here, that you have a player at Missouri who's suing Georgia about, the way that he left the program. Feels like Georgia's holding something against him. Presumably money, it would seem. So, we're getting a lot of these things now in college sports where you can say to some degree it's kind of lost its way. But, at the same time, a lot of people thought players should be paid for a long time. So just the nature of the beast here, to be sure. You look at a guy like Byron Brown, who's out there in the transfer portal now, actually stayed healthy last year, right? So by being able to prove that he could stay healthy, he's going to go get a massive bag from somebody else. Even though there's reasons to stay with Brian Hartline and his, ability to recruit wide receivers and coach up offense and all of that. So it's just how it's going to keep going from here on out.
Adam, thank you for the time. And I love how festive you are today with the Santa hat. We're in the Christmas spirit. Look at that smile. Beautiful. Adam, you're awesome as always. Hopefully, with the plays today, we get some gifts and not a lump of coal.
When I think of unbridled joy, I think of Adam Burke.
100%. Don't we all? We'll be right back. More Money Moves coming up after this as we reset for hour 2.